He became the deadliest servant Sauron ever created. But who was he before the ring twisted him? Once a proud mortal king, ambition and power drew him toward darkness, shaping the Witch-King of Angmar. Before the shadows claimed him, he was a man of Númenórean blood, a king in the northern reaches of Middle-earth. His line traced back to noble ancestors, rulers of a kingdom poised between prosperity and peril. Citizens saw strength and order in his reign, but behind the crown, ambition burned hotter than any forge. He expanded borders, forged alliances, and demanded loyalty, yet his pride often blinded him to subtle threats. Every victory fed his sense of destiny, every whispered challenge stoked a quiet paranoia. He studied the arts of war and governance, believing intellect and courage would secure his immortality. But even then, hints of vulnerability surfaced. He coveted power beyond mortal reach. He lingered too long over tales of ancient kings and lost treasures, yearning for the strength to bend fate. The seeds of corruption were sown, invisible yet relentless, awaiting the right instrument to twist him entirely. Then the 9 rings arrived, promising power beyond imagination. The rings of power were gifts, shimmering promises of life, strength, and dominion. One by one he received them, each designed to enslave mortal will. At first, they seemed a tool to extend his reign, a way to protect his kingdom and assert authority over rivals. Yet the rings whispered at night, bending desire into obsession. Dreams of conquest and eternal life replaced reason. Those around him began to notice his distant gaze, the subtle cruelty hidden beneath counsel and ceremony. Loyalty turned to fear, respect to trembling obedience. Advisors argued, generals doubted, but all fell silent when the ring's power twisted his intent. Each ring tightened its invisible chain, reshaping his spirit. Where ambition once drove him, fear and hunger for power now consumed him. His mortality became a cage he sought desperately to escape, unknowingly opening the door to Sauron's ultimate plan. Slowly, the mortal king faded, and the shadow of the Witch-King began to form. Bound by darkness, he vanished, leaving mortality behind forever. The mortal king faded, replaced by something else, something neither living nor fully dead. The rings had done their work. Flesh and blood gave way to shadow and dread. His voice became chilling, his presence suffocating. As the leader of the Nazgul, he no longer needed sunlight or sleep. His face, if ever glimpsed, was a mask of terror. The crown that once symbolized rule now hung over a spectral dominion. Death followed him like a loyal servant. Fear became his weapon. Those who opposed him felt instinctive despair, as though their courage had been stripped away before the first strike. Communities collapsed before his armies, and legends of his power grew with each passing decade. Mortals and elves alike whispered his name in fear, for his shadow was absolute. The world of men had lost a king, only to gain a nightmare walking among the living. From Angmar's frozen heights, he carved a kingdom of shadows. In the north, Angmar rose under his iron hand. Fortresses sprouted along bleak hills, and watchfires burned like warning beacons. No rival dared resist openly. Terror alone secured obedience. He commanded armies of men and fell creatures, uniting them under one ruthless goal: the annihilation of Arnor. Spies and assassins spread through villages and towns, ensuring loyalty or death. Every policy, every raid, and every siege reflected his meticulous strategy and cold calculation. Scholars and historians would later note his ability to instill fear while maintaining strict order among his followers. Angmar was more than a military power. It was a manifestation of his will, a dark reflection of ambition twisted by centuries-old rings. The land seemed to recoil beneath his influence, and neighboring realms whispered that a new shadow walked the north. Resistance was crushed before it could organize, and rumors of his supernatural presence spread far beyond the kingdom's borders. Soon, the wars against Arnor would ignite in fire. He unleashed campaigns of terror across the northern kingdoms, striking swiftly and without mercy. Villages burned in the dead of night, fortresses crumbled under relentless siege engines, and survivors fled before the shadow of Angmar. Every strike was calculated to break morale as much as bodies, leaving whispers of fear that traveled faster than armies. Despite the devastation, resistance arose. Small bands of men, stubborn and defiant, attempted to rally forces, defend their homes, or reclaim lost ground. Yet even these acts of courage faltered beneath his unyielding strategy. The Witch-King's armies were disciplined, relentless, and merciless, with spies and assassins ensuring that betrayal or hesitation met swift punishment. By the end of his campaigns, Arnor was fractured, its cities in ruins, and its kings reduced to shadows of authority. The North had fallen into despair, a chilling reminder that Angmar's power was absolute, and it had only just begun. Centuries later, he returned to power in the Third Age. Under Sauron's shadow, the Witch-King returned, more terrible than ever. No longer a lone shadow of northern fear, he commanded the full might of the Nazgul, each rider a spectre of dread, each army a tool of relentless conquest. He led sieges across Middle-earth, striking at Gondor, harrying Rohan, and spreading terror wherever resistance flickered. His strategies were ruthless. Cities fell before they could organize defenses, and survivors spoke only in whispers of his approach. On Pelennor fields, his presence alone drove men to despair. Commanders faltered, soldiers wavered, and hope seemed to vanish beneath his shadow. The Witch-King did not merely fight, he orchestrated fear as a weapon. Nazgul and mortal allies alike obeyed without question, bound by dread and unyielding discipline. Every strike reinforced his dominance. Every whispered name spread panic. His return was total, an unstoppable force of Sauron's will, and Middle-earth trembled in anticipation of what was to come. At Pelennor Fields, prophecy and destiny finally converged. The prophecy hung over him like a shadow. No man can kill him. Confident, the Witch-King strode across Pelennor Field, terror incarnate, his presence alone breaking the will of men. He struck down knights and leaders, a whirlwind of shadow and steel, and the armies of Gondor faltered beneath his relentless assault. Then Éowyn, disguised and resolute, stepped into his path, flanked by Merry, whose blade found a hidden weak spot. The prophecy unraveled as courage and cunning combined. The Witch-King's confidence faltered. He had underestimated the defiance of those he deemed lesser. Steel and fate converged, and in a moment of mortal reckoning, he fell. Death did not erase his legacy. The shadow of his terror lingered, burned into the memory of survivors and chroniclers alike. Even in defeat, the Witch-King remained a symbol of ambition twisted into horror, a reminder that the darkest servants of power leave marks that endure beyond the grave. From mortal ambition to spectral terror, his story endures eternally. He began as a mortal king, ambitious, proud, and driven by desire for power. The rings of power twisted that ambition, erasing flesh and humanity until only shadow remained. From the proud ruler of a northern kingdom, he became the Witch-King of Angmar, Sauron's deadliest lieutenant, a figure whose name alone summoned fear across Middle-earth. His victories and terror left scars on kingdoms, his presence shaped battles, and even in death, the echo of his shadow lingered. Ambition corrupted beyond redemption, mortality surrendered, and legend was born. Who do you think played a bigger role in his defeat? Prophecy, Éowyn, or Merry? Let us know what you think.